We'll call to order the Board of Zoning and Appeals. If you'll stand for the pledge, and I'll ask our Vice Chairman, Jerry Sartain, who did such a wonderful job in my absence last month, to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Gary Farley.
Here.
Amber Brown.
Here.
Jerry Sartain. Here. Joe Machado.
Here.
William Harper. Here. Renee Curtis. Here. Zane Cantrell.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, you have the minutes of the June the 12th meeting. Are there any changes or additions to the minutes? Bill?
On 026, the motion carried 6-4, 1 against, and it should read 1 absent.
Okay. We'll make that correction. Are there any others? Joe?
If no others, I move to approve them.
Have a motion to be approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. The minutes are approved. I'd like to acknowledge Commissioner Michael Rather, who is here, longtime BZA member, and it's always good to have you back with us, Michael. Thank you for being here. And I'd also like to recognize our new member. Well, this is your second time, though. Amber Brown, who is new, I get. Well, I didn't want to say new. I was searching for another word. But anyway, it is so good to have you with us, Amber. I'm sorry I missed last month and missed you here for your first time. But I'm sure Jerry took care of you and all that. Just let us know if you need anything or need any support. We'll do whatever we need to see that you have a good membership with us. The first item we have is a request by Carol Zandig, and that is a request for a variance relief of 1.25 feet and on the rear yard setback of 5 feet. And what do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2019-30, filed by Carol Zaradnik, involves the property located at 122 Jamison Downs Drive. It's a request for variance relief of 1.25 feet from the rear yard setback of 5 feet for a structure located in the RM zone. And this is the existing home site. The applicant wishes to construct a shed on her property. She approached her homeowners association and obtained approval for the shed and its appearance. They had informed the applicant to take the measurement from the fence that was placed on the back of the adjacent property along Camilla Lane. That assumption resulted in the applicant pouring the pad too close to the property line instead of taking the measurement for the rear yard setback from the property pins. It was taken from the back of the fence, and the fence location was erroneous. What was informed to what the applicant was informed. And the applicant originally had a contractor who told her that a permit was not needed at that time, and she worked with this contractor until they decided to refund the applicant. She obtained a different contractor. They poured the pad, were notified that they needed a permit. They came in and obtained a permit from the building department, and upon the foundation inspection, it was they were advised to locate the pins and string checked the measurement of the setback, and it resulted in the encroachment being identified. So the applicant has provided a survey that shows the exact location of the structure and the encroachment, and she's seeking variance relief from the closest point to the property line. So as you can see, the pad is located towards the back of the property. And as we discussed in the meeting, the applicant provided a detailed chronology that gave you the events that led up to the encroachment and the discovery of the encroachment. The surrounding properties, we received one informational call regarding this request, and this is the location of the structure. So that concludes our presentation.
Any questions of our staff at this time? Do we have anyone here representing this request? If you'll come around, please. Just come up here to the podium. Just give us your name and any additional information you'd like to share. There may be some questions.
Okay. I'm Carol Zrodnik, and this is my husband, J.D. Zrodnik. And the information you provided was correct. It was basically from the letter that I provided with my application, but I'm open to any questions you might have.
Any questions?
Have you spoken to the neighbor behind you?
No, I have not.
Any other question? Thank you. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. You'll come around, please.
Hi, my name is Vicki Beatty. I live at 113 Camilla Lane in the Jameson Downs subdivision. I'm a part of the HOA committee in that subdivision. I'm the secretary. And I just wanted to state that at the time of the structure, when they sent the email of what was being built, it wasn't anything stated about the footage. We was assuming that everyone knew where their property line was, that you cannot base your property line on your next neighbors. So I'd just like to put that out there.
Any questions? Jerry?
So as the homeowners association, do you folks object to it staying where it is?
Well, the ones that's behind them does. And they're on Alaskan cruise. That's how come they can't be here today.
They do object to it being that close
Yes.
to the property line?
Yes.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions? Thank you. Wait just a minute, okay? Anyone else? We still have the public hearing. If you want to come around, yes. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to say that before the property was laid out, the pad was laid out to be poured back in January of this year. We have written information from the HOA building committee advising us to use that property fence behind us as our measuring point. I have it in writing that the HOA provided that information. Yes. In addition, we spoke with the builder of that fence at the time it was being built a couple years ago, because we had talked to them about possibly using that fence line and continuing it, and they told us at the time that it was 5 feet off the property line, and so therefore we would be unable to do that. So we talked to the people, the company who constructed the fence. And also, here I have in writing, more than once, but here is the place in writing where it says to use that as a starting spot. It states, Mauer's fence is 5 feet back from the property line. Use the fence and see what is left. Let me know once measured. And it's from Sherry Tidwell, who is the treasurer of our HOA association and also part of the building committee, from what I understand.
Do you have an outside company that manages your HOA, or is it
No,
self-managed? So
it's
there is
self-managed.
no company that manages the HOA?
That is correct. Would you like to see this? Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. If you have any
Thank you.
questions, I'm here.
Thank you. Any comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, what I just saw to me verifies that she's got it in writing from the HOA. I'll make a motion we approve the request.
Okay, we have a motion to be approved. We have a second.
I second.
Have a second. Any further comments? Call a roll, please.
Gary Farley,
Yes.
Amber Brown.
Yes.
Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
William Harper,
Yes.
Renee Curtis,
No.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. It is approved. The next item we have is a request by Michael DePascal, and this is a special exemption approval allowing the establishment of a major home business. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2019-31, filed by Mr. De Pascal, involves the property located at 8912 Leanna Central Valley Road. It's a request for special exception approval allowing the establishment of a major home-based business involving woodworking, furniture repair, and cabinetry upon a property located in the RM zone. And this is the location of the property. This is the home, as well as a barn that I believe is planned to be removed by the applicant. This aerial does not reflect the 4,000 square foot detached accessory structure that was constructed with a permit and is permitted for personal use earlier this year. I do have some photos of the structure that Mr. De Pascal is proposing to establish his business within. He does custom woodwork. It would only involve one employee at a time on site. He's not proposing to have any signage. He'd have business hours from 7 to 5, Monday through Friday. He's proposing to store 2 business vehicles at the site, one involving a single axle van and the other a single axle box truck. We have received 3 informational calls regarding this request and found that the request met the criteria for major home-based business. And these are photos of the surrounding area as well as the structure in question. And as you can see on our pictometry, we do have the structure. It was built earlier this year, and I think the photos were taken sometime in February. So this concludes our presentation.
Do we have any questions of our staff? Do we have anyone here representing this request? If you'll come around, please. Do you go by Michael or Anthony?
I actually go by Tony.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Give us your name and...
My official name is Michael Anthony De Pasquale. As she stated, I live at 8912 Leanna Central Valley Road. Just built the shop, and as she stated, that I would just like to do some woodworking, furniture repair, and cabinet making.
Any questions?
Is there a bathroom in the shop?
No, ma'am.
Any living quarters already separated, walls studded in?
Nope.
Nothing? Not framed up?
There's rooms framed up. They're closets for storage. for the business.
Like, what is the dimensions, like a closet or a closet
Yes.
like a?
Like a
room?
5 by 4 closet that houses an air compressor, another one a similar size for a dust collection system, and another one for general just supplies.
As far as, is there a porta potty on the area for your
my
employee?
house is about 100 feet from it, and I allow them to go up to the house if they need to. There
As
is
far as your solid waste or any waste, how does that get removed from the property?
solid waste such as
Dumpsters.
like dumpsters. I don't have a dumpster. We would take it from in our pickup truck to the dump. Hmm?
Yes, sir. Are you going to be doing any lacquer spraying or any painting or
There
anything?
will be some painting involved.
Okay. You do realize by doing that, you'll have to get with building codes, and there have to be some kind of spray booth or something like that? to
There
meet the
is a
codes?
spray booth there.
Okay.
I have it's approved by OSHA and other, it's a real spray booth.
Any other questions? Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Michael? I know you couldn't stay quiet.
I memorized the whole 30 minutes of my speech. I do want to say that, with the exception of Mrs. Curtis here, that Amber Brown, I got to talk to Amber quite some time ago before joining the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I don't think you could have found a more intelligent, better person to be on this board. Of course, we know who her mommy is, so, you know, that says something too. And with the exception of Miss Curtis, she really makes the rest of y'all look much better. When I read this application, I know he met all the criteria. So I started not to come until I noticed his name, because it's Michael Anthony, and my name is Michael Anthony. And I thought, well, I got to meet this guy because he's got to be a really good guy. So I went and spent some time with him yesterday. One of my first questions was the paint booth. So I got to see the paint booth, and it's probably a lot better than what I would have done. I injured myself trying to pronounce his last name. I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to call him Tony from now on. Main reason I showed up was to tell you I've seen it, I've looked at it, I've talked to him. Seems like a great guy. We probably spent over an hour together talking, and I have received 0 calls about it. So I think it's a good thing, but do your job.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. We always appreciate commissioners giving us a little bit of additional information out in their district, so we thank you for that. Anyone else? Close the public hearing. Bill?
Move to approve.
Have a motion be approved.
Second, please.
Have a second. Call the roll, please.
Gary Farley,
Yes.
Amber Brown, Joe Machado,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
William Harper,
Yes.
Renee Curtis,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes. The next item we have is a request by Spencer Sellers, who is requesting a special exemption approval to allow establishment of a non-commercial storage facility. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2019-32 involves the property located at 634 Baker Road. Mr. Sellers is seeking special exception approval to allow the establishment of a non-commercial storage facility to be used for personal storage in the RM zone. This is the site in question. The applicant has supplied us with documentation from a soil consultant indicating that the property cannot support the installation of a septic tank and system to serve a single-family home, which is permitted in the RM zone. And so our zoning ordinance allows someone to provide this documentation and ask for special exception approval to allow them to erect a building for personal storage. Mr. Sellers is proposing to build a 30 by 50 storage structure for his antique cars on this property. And you can see the surrounding area that's across the street, and there's home sites surrounding Mr. Sellers. He is also in the process of platting, combining some of the lots nearby to, in order to build a home. This area is kind of challenged when it comes to soil sites, and it's one of those platted subdivisions that were done many years ago before soils were even shown on plats. So we find that he meets the criteria subject to the provisions of the approval. And if he were to be approved tonight for special exception, the structure cannot be used for living quarters. It cannot be used for commercial activities, nor storage for businesses that occur off-site. This is completely for the use of the property owner and private use, not commercial use, and it would be subject to that unless a zoning change were to occur in the future. And we did receive 3 informational calls regarding this request, and that concludes our presentation.
Any questions of our staff? Do we have anyone here representing this request? Will come around, please. You'll give us your name and any additional information you want to share about this.
Spencer Sellers. I reside at 682 Baker Road. I got about 4 of these lots. I put them all together. I'm going to build me a house on there once the county gets it approved, if it gets approved. And we want this to put my antique cars in, and because if you don't keep them, it's not going to be used for anything other than that. You know what I mean? We're going to work on some of them in there sometime. It'll just be me and my son. And it's we just restore old cars. And, you know, we don't do it for profit. If we buy something and we put it together, then we sell the car and that sort of stuff. But that's strictly what it's going to be there for. It's not, you know, I've had it soil tested. Matter of fact, I've had the whole thing. If you step over one lot, on 4 in a row there, and on 2 back. So I'm not putting all that together, but all that's going to be a home site for myself in the near future, if everything, you know, if the county approves it. But other than that, you know, it's just a nice. It's going to be a nice little shop. I'm gonna make it fit the neighborhood. I ain't gonna just put up a metal shop and put up something that looks like some of the houses around there, and try to work it from there.
Any questions? Thank you, sir. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing. Jerry?
With the conditions so mentioned by Danielle, I move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion to be approved.
I'll second it.
Have a second. Call the roll, please.
Gary Farley,
Yes.
Amber Brown, Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
William Harper,
Yes.
Renee Curtis, Zane Cantrell.
Yes. The next item we have is Singular Wireless. This is AT&T Mobile. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2019-33 involves the location at 13225 Bradyville Pike. It's a request for special exception approval for the establishment of a monopole communications tower measuring 199 feet in height upon a property located in the RL zone. The property is a 33-acre site close to the edge of Rutherford County, and the applicant is proposing to lease an area from the property owner to place a 58 by 59 fenced area with related structures for the 199-foot tower. They will utilize the existing driveway, and should they get approval tonight, their next step is to go through the site plan review process to determine that they meet the technical standards for development. The applicant has supplied us with a complete application as well as a third-party review from Mr. Larry Perry that finds that the application meets the intent of the Rutherford County zoning ordinance in section 1105. And we received several informational calls regarding this request, but no one has indicated any opposition. And this is the overall site plan. Like I said earlier, they propose to access the site utilizing the existing driveway. There may be some changes to the existing driveway, but it would be the same location. That driveway would be evaluated during the site plan review process, and then go up the site and then kind of come around, and the tower itself exceeds all the setback regulations that we look for in regards to equal to the height of the tower set apart from adjacent properties. So so you see the tower site, the compound here, and the applicant has provided us a letter that if the tower is no longer used, it would be removed, should it be discontinued for, I think, over 180 days, and that they propose to have 3 additional co-location opportunities for other carriers to utilize this site. And that concludes our presentation.
Mr. Perry, have you examined this request and found that it meets federal, state, and local guidelines? You want to talk about that, huh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's Larry Perry. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, 11464 Saga Lane, and we've been doing this for almost 50 years now, since cellular first came into being. And I have looked at this under the ordinance that we have in Rutherford County, and it meets the requirements of the county. It meets the requirements of the state of Tennessee, and it meets all the federal requirements as we proposed in our opinion of it. If anybody has any questions, I'd like to. This is way on out 13,000 block of Bradyville Road, and it's out in the middle of a woods, so it's a pretty good location as far as that goes. As I mentioned last time I was with you guys about 3 or 4 months ago, you're going to be hit, and the county, the power company here is going to be hit with a lot of requests for small towers, 35, 40, 50 feet over the next 9 months when they're putting in the new 5G system. Now, 5G can fit on this tower, but they probably won't use it because it's too far out. It's going to be, most of your 5G is going to be on telephone poles around town here, so just kind of keep that in the back of your mind as you're looking at tower applications in the next, between now and the fall of 2020 when 5G goes into effect. Just FYI.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Do we have anyone here representing this request? If you'll come around, please.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, for the recorded record, my name is David Pike. I'm a principal with Pike Legal Group, PLLC, P.O. Box 369, Shepherdsville, Kentucky. It's a pleasure to appear before you. As you might guess, we take these applications very seriously. Witness the somewhat voluminous nature of the documentation that we've been submitting to your staff. I can approach this any number of ways. I have a full PowerPoint presentation and the like. Based on what I have heard, however, what I was going to suggest is perhaps I do a ever so short summary, about 3 minutes long, and distribute my hearing binders, and if in the event a longer presentation is appropriate based on opposition comments, I'd like to reserve the opportunity to request that.
Give us a short version, and if we need to bring you back, we will.
Very good. If I could, Mr. Rogers, would you please bring up those binders and distribute them while I launch into this? Well, first of all, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank both Larry and Danielle for all of their hard work in connection with this application. It's, of course, gratifying to hear that recommendation. And of course, it's no accident that we have met all those criteria. We have burned up the phone lines with Danielle in particular, making sure we had a solid understanding of them. As part of that, of course, we've also filed the written documentation that was requested by Mr. Perry in his third-party independent report regarding discontinuance of use and availability for co-location. Setbacks, without getting into all the details, I'd like to highlight a couple of the most important criteria. First, as noted in your staff report, this is a heavily wooded area. That doesn't hide the tower, but based on perspective functions, it will help to obscure it significantly, and the base of it will be totally obscured. It's also worth noting that it's 593 feet to the nearest residential structure that is on our property and is owned by our property owner. The closest residential property that is not owned by our property owner, that structure is roughly 1,000 feet away. So in terms of setbacks, this goes beyond exemplary. It's also worth noting, I heard some comments earlier in your staff review regarding height. This is less than 200 feet tall, so it does not have to be lit for aviation purposes. If you kind of do an analysis of this, there are 10 FCC registered towers within about 7.5 miles of this location. 8 out of those 10 towers are taller than this structure. In fact, the average height of those 10 towers is 273 feet, a full 74 feet taller. So I'm not so bold as an advocate to suggest that this is a short structure. It isn't. It's a cell tower. But in relative terms, this is significantly shorter than the pattern of towers that this board has previously approved. Naturally, you have very able legal counsel, and it's been a pleasure dealing with him prior to our appearance this evening. And you should follow his advice, period. Having said that, included in the materials that we've submitted is some extensive documentation indicating our view of the law under both the unique state statutes in Tennessee and under the Federal Telecommunications Act as amended, indicating that issues such as radio frequency emissions, aesthetics, and lay testimony do not constitute substantial evidence and cannot serve as a basis under federal law for a cell tower disapproval. At this juncture, in keeping with my commitment to be brief, I will wrap this up with great style. And that is, I'd like to introduce the hearing binder that I've just distributed as cumulatively as an exhibit, as well as all of our prior filings, Larry Perry's report, and all of the planner's documentation that's been filed in connection with this case. It's been a pleasure appearing before you, and hopefully I've lived up to the concept of brief actually meaning something for a lawyer.
Thank you. We appreciate that. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. If you'll come around, please.
My name is Walter Valovich. I live at 5698 Farrell Hollow Road, just below that cell phone tower. I don't know if they did their dimensions right. This is all I got, by the way. And I can't hardly read anything on here. And I don't know where they come up with their math on the distances, GPS or whatever. I haven't seen anything. They haven't talked to me. Didn't stop at the house, said, hey, we're going to put up a cell phone tower. I got nothing. So I got this little obscure scale of this 200 feet rule. And of course, they cut the house off. And I kind of guesstimated at where that cell phone tower would be. And my math comes up to somewhere around 650 feet from my house. Like I said, I'm guessing here because there are no dimensions. My house is not on here, nor is Charles, Pam's, nobody's. So I don't know if they're right, who's right or wrong here. Not only that, on top of this hillside, matter of fact, we use that hillside. The kids ride their four-wheelers up there, dirt bikes, tree houses. We've got a cabin, rustic cabin up there. We've got a campsite. If the dimensions are right by this, then that tower lies within 200 to 250 feet from their cell phone tower. I feel it unsafe. I don't know. Doing a little research on this 200-foot tower, The reason why they can't put it over 200 feet is because of safety measures, because of winds, is from what I hear, from what I've seen online. If they put that tower up there, and I ever wanted to utilize that back side of my property on the Bradeville side, per se, if I wanted to put a road in there to put a house right there, now we're talking, I don't know, there's another, I don't know, probably 400 feet if I was to put a house right there on the Bradeville side. I deem that unsafe. I'm glad to hear they are not going to put the red lights on there, because that was one of my things on here, because it's not the FAA and they don't have to have their flashing red lights, and that's all good and great. And you talked about the you know, I'm not going to, I had a whole thing about cancer awareness and all this stuff, but we'll cut to the chase on that. So my thing is, where we play and enjoy our property, where we hike and bike and the kids are up there in the woods, I deem it unsafe, because it is 200 feet, 250 feet, 600 feet, even if it's 1,000 feet to the house. If it was to fall, what would the concussion do going down that hill to the house? Just saying, I don't know. But what I've got some questions from the United States Fish and Wildlife Service that I called, because I wanted to find out. I went to the FCC site, matter of fact, and if you go and look underneath the environmental section, they will send you to Fish and Game. So I went to Fish and Game, and then Fish and Game has got a thing on there that says, you know, you can map your location. So okay, I did. So I mapped out 2.5 acres on top of that hill, which would probably encompass part of my land, part of that land, and around. Now, you can go as big as you want. I just did a small section. And what I found out was, we have, let me find this again, get my notes. Where'd it go? Bear with me for a minute. I got it here somewhere. Lost it. Oh, yeah. 8 endangered species, 5 migratory bird flyways, and a wetlands. Now, what Kyle, I didn't get his last name, but I do have his phone number, from Fish and Game, said, I need to get this information, which I could not find on here anywhere. I need the installer's name, I need the tower number, I need the GPS location number, I need to double make sure it's FCC approved, and I need the permit number, because they're going to investigate this. So that's where I'm at with this. Don't want the tower in my backyard, but now to come to find out some interesting things about that property in that area. Wooded, extremely wooded, beautiful, landscaped, rolling hills. He's right. Beautiful area. All for the convenience of a cell phone tower? It's not a necessity. It's convenience. Nobody has to have.
Sir, you need to finish up, please.
Okay. Well, that's it then. I need that information from you guys, because I got to get with Fish and Game if I can get that.
Thank you very much. Wait just a minute. Any questions? Wait just a second.
You didn't finish your comment. Have you got a phone?
Yeah.
Got a phone?
I was just going to say, you know, it's a beautiful place to live, and that's why we moved out there, not to look at cell phone towers. We got out of the city so we wouldn't have to look at cell phone towers and telephone towers and all the concrete. Take the kids out there, let them raise up on a farm. That's what we did. And now, little by little, it's encroaching. I'm against it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Anyone else? If you'll come around, please.
My name is Karen Valovich. I am Walter Valovich's wife. I'm at 5698 Farrell Hollow Road. And I'm obviously very much against this. I wanted to share something. I'm also very emotional about it, so you'll have to pardon me if I lose it. When I'm angry, I cry. This is a view from our backyard, and this is a view with where I think the tower's going to go. My husband moved out there 20 years ago. I'm sorry. He sold his truck so that he could afford a down payment on this piece of land because it was so important to him to get out of the city and to get in the country. He lived on this 16 acres in a tent while he built a small cabin, and he lived in that cabin with no electricity and no running water for 10 years. He hauled the water at 400 gallons at a time. And that's how he lived, a very simple life, and he was very happy that way. Eventually, he did build a house. The blueprints were all his. He built the house with his 2 hands. He's a very, very handy guy. Now he has me, and we're a blended family, so we have 4 kids between us. And we share them with their other parents who live in the city. What they always tell us is how much they love the fact that when they come out to see us, they get to be in the country. They have 16 acres that they can run free on, and they can do so safely. We live in the back, and where those pictures are taken, that's where we spend all of our time. We do bonfires. We pray on that hill. We were married on that hill, looking up at that view. He built the cabin up in the woods so that we could camp out, because the first time we tried to camp out in a tent, it leaked. So he said, okay, no more tents, I'll build a cabin. So it's a glimpse of our life out there. I know that the future's on its way and cell towers are going to be coming up. I don't think this is the place for this one. I think there are a lot of hills out there where there aren't 3 houses within 500 feet. I hope there's another place that they can find to put this. I think my husband spoke about the questioning on how far it was from our property line. That was disturbing to us. My biggest thing, I just wanted to tell you how much heart and soul is on that land and how important it is for us to be able to look up at that sky. And with that, if we can't beat this, and the cell towers are going to go up out there, even not just this one, but in the future, I beg of you to consider asking or demanding of these companies to do the stealth towers like these. At the very least, this is an actual cell tower. I think it has a lot less of an impact than a 200-foot metal pole in the middle of these beautiful rolling hills. If you haven't been out to Reedville yet, drive out there. It's off the 4-lane. Take a right on Cripple Creek, take a left on Farrell Hollow, and just drive, or have someone drive you so you can look, because it's the closest thing we have to East Tennessee. It's mountainous and full of trees, and it's absolutely beautiful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? If you come around, please.
Evening. My name is Charles Stukenborg. I live at 5634 Farrell Hollow Road. I'd like to thank you for your time and the opportunity to actually stand up here and speak with you. To be quite honest with you, I didn't think this thing was going to be quite this big of a deal. I didn't come with a lawyer. I didn't come with big money behind me with any of this stuff. Obviously, there's some big money, switching hands in this situation. I don't have a legal foot supposedly to stand on. I get that. I'm not against progress in the least bit. There's one thing here that's been mentioned, and it was brought up that sounds like this is in the middle of nowhere. you know, in the boonies, nothing's going on. If you don't mind, about the only thing I can tell you, just take a peek. That's my brand-new house that I've built on this property. I completely am at your mercy as to what this does to my area. I've got, at the moment, approximately a $400,000 piece of property. Do the numbers on it in the upcoming years, 6 to 10%, you know, we're pushing $500,000. If you put right there, if you take the center of my house and you draw that tower in there, that's what I get to look at every single day of my life. Put yourself in my position, if you would, please, and think about you going out and having a choice at the time that you look at a piece of property. And you can decide whether you want to live with a neighbor. You can decide whether you want to live with whatever's in your area. Right now, I'm not given a choice. I've got people that want to come in, plop a tower there. Again, I am not against the progress side of it, but you said something very important here. It is a sparsely populated area. There are 2 families that are going to be impacted by a tower that's going to go up in a sparsely populated area. There are so many other areas out there that this tower can be put on. I have neighbors that have said, hey, I got a piece, put it on my property. I mean, they're dying for it. And it doesn't have to be within 600 feet of anybody's residence. Again, I didn't come with the lawyers. I don't have the legal standing. I'm at your mercy. That's all I have is that piece of property. And if I do decide to sell that, my box narrows down. Whether we like it or not, even if it has no health effects, even if it has, you know, none of the quote-on things that might move you to make a decision, people are going to drive up and go, beautiful house, beautiful property. Man, I don't like that thing sticking out of the back of my house. And I'll have to see it every day. I could probably live with it to an extent, but what if I do decide to sell? What if I do decide to move on? And if it were yours and you had invested this much time, this much money, would you want it in your backyard? There's too many other places to put it. And I would absolutely plead with you tonight to make the right decision. And and here's what gets me. If we had that much money behind what's going on in this tower, how come no one knocked on my door? How come no one gave me an idea as to what was actually going to go on in my community? 2 houses. There's so many areas around there where there's nothing else. I hope you'll consider that and consider if it was the place that you drove up every single day of your life. And that was the place we found we wanted to spend our life. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Close the public hearing. Any discussion?
I'd like to know how many letters went out to the homeowners, or was it not, or were they too far away?
Thank you, sir.
7. Size of the tracks, it's a 500-foot radius around the property boundary, so 7.
7. And what's the time frame that they went out in?
Pardon?
How long was it posted?
Well, they're dated June 25th.
And they were mailed on the 27th.
The sign went up when? How long was the sign posted also?
The sign was posted, the 28th of June.
Go ahead.
You stated in our meeting before that you only had 2 informational calls prior to the meeting tonight?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask our attorney, if you could explain where this body is at legally with, when they said we meet the federal and state and our Rutherford County guidelines. I sympathize with the people that are talking, but can you explain that for us?
I can do my best, and if I miss anything, the report from Mr. Larry Terry might shore it up as well, but there are federal laws that limit the ability of local governments to place restrictions at a very grand scale on the ability of cell towers to be placed within the municipality's jurisdiction. There are certain things that can be done, for example, requiring landscaping, buffer requirements. Danielle would know about that. That's already in our zoning ordinance. So primarily, local governmental entities and its officials are hamstringed by what's required by federal law because we cannot preempt what federal law already says. It would be unconstitutional and against the law. So as long as an application is in line with FCC regulations and federal law, I know that there were some comments about environmental impacts. Again, I'm not a federal lawyer with FCC, but if there are, in fact, environmental impacts, I believe that the applicant would have to get environmental impact statement or do some sort of assessment that the FCC would require them through NEPA, which is all federal law stuff. So you guys here are confined on a very small scale that as long as it complies with what we can require and as long as it complies with what the FCC and federal law requires, you really don't have an ability to deny the application.
Thank you. And with that being said, I guess, Danielle, as you stated earlier, this meets all those guidelines, and Mr. Perry stated that they meet all these guidelines, correct?
Yes, according to our review and a third-party review, the tower, as proposed, meets our requirements for special exception approval. It still will have to demonstrate meeting our site plan review requirements.
Correct. With that being said, Mr. Chairman, I sympathize with what the neighbors are saying. I really do. And I'm just not just saying that. I really do sympathize. However, with our hands being tied with the way the law reads and our ordinances and with the state law, federal law, I'll make a motion that we approve the request.
I have a motion to be approved. Do we have a second? Have a second. And we're open for a little discussion on this. And I too, every time we have a cell tower here, we hear the same things that you folks have said. And we believe what you're saying. We understand what you're saying. But you'll have to be seated. The public hearing's open. There are federal and state laws that tie the BZA's hands. We have no legal authority to turn this down, provided it meets state, federal, and local requirements, of which it does. Now, if you want to change this, you've got to go to federal law and state law to get it changed. Now, why does the board of BZA look at it? Just to say we've met requirements, and we have met requirements. It is a legal obligation. It would be illegal for us to turn it down. Now, what would happen, I don't want to get into all of this, but there are legal maneuvers that they could take, and regardless of what we say, it would still be approved. But I'm not going to be one that's going to say to you that I'm going to violate the law. If you were sitting here yourself and you made the oath to be on the BZA, you too would have to follow the law or resign from here. You don't have any choice. In the cell towers, we have this all of the time with cell towers, the same thing. And I hope the people of this county, wherever you are, take your cell phones and pitch them away. They won't be building towers then if you do away with that. But that's not going to happen. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any other comments? Bill?
There was a picture of a cell tower that looked like a pine tree. I have seen cell towers that look like palm trees in congested areas in Florida. And I'm just wondering if that would be an option to design it to look as if it was part of the forest.
Yes, it'd be all right if they didn't grow coconuts on it. You know, that's entirely up to them on what kind. We can't tell them what kind to put up, as long as they do meet federal requirements, in which obviously they do. Any other comments? Call the roll, please.
Gary Farley, Amber Brown, Joe Machoto,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
William Harper,
Yes.
Renee Curtis, Zane Cantrell.
Yes, it is approved. Any other business to come before the BZA?
No, sir.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.